in a few days.
Hundreds of thousands of people will be gathered here to watch the fastest cars in the world. Over 3 nights, hotshot racers will be tearing down these very streets. But if you aren't one of those hotshot drivers, don't even try mimicking them, because you will end up facing the long arms of the law.
In July, Parliament made changes to the Road Traffic Act for the first time in 2 decades. In addition to stiffer penalties for dangerous driving, the authorities also raised the level of fines. So, if you drive a car or a motorcycle around Singapore and run a red light, you will incur the same 12 demerit points as before, but fines are now double, rising from $200 to $400. The Home Affairs Ministry hopes the move will grind irresponsible driving to a halt. Violations such as red light running, for example, have gone up by about 38% in the last 5 years.
So I have to admit, I haven't always been a saint on the road. A few years ago, I got caught for speeding. I had to pay a $150 fine. I also got 4 demerit points. And that was enough to set me straight. And that's what the authorities are hoping these fine increases will do. Change the way people behave behind the wheel.
But are heavier fines the answer to finally curbing our bad habits on the road? I'm meeting John. He's had far more run-ins with the law than me. I want to know if higher fines will finally turn this rule breaker into a law-abiding driver.
How many years have you been driving, roughly?
Driving about 15 years.
And how many traffic offences have you received during that time?
I suppose that would be around the area of like 10 to 15.
Okay.
Yeah. Speeding for one, and, crossing double white lines, bus lanes. Illegal U-turns are quite high on the list.
Oh, really? Okay.
Illegal U-turns. But I believe the fine was about 100. But I think the price has increased. Yeah.
But you haven't received a ticket since the price increase?
I think once, about $30 more.
Did you feel any worse about it?
Oh, no, not really. Honestly speaking. Most of the time, personally, I'll do them because you want to escape a congested area. That's why you take a shortcut, which in this case, which at times can come in the form of making a illegal U-turn.
So what then do you think will make you change your behaviour?
I think demerit points are the hardest to recover from. You could pay off a fine, but demerit points take time.
But our demerit point system remains unchanged. So I wonder, is there another way to make the fine hikes more effective against bad drivers? Classical deterrence theory states that people will avoid offending behavior if they fear the perceived consequences of the act. For example, if you know you're getting caught, you won't break the law. But perceived consequences like monetary fines may not scare all of us equally. According to my research, the rich might not be deterred by fines in the same way as the rest of us.
So should we be targeting the wealthy?
Nominated MP Walter Tissera has advocated for this move. He believes we should punish traffic offenders based on the type of car they drive. So the higher the open market value of the vehicle, the higher the fine.
It happens to be the case in Finland, and Finland use tax records to determine how much you can afford to pay. Now in Singapore, we only really tax earned income. So that leaves quite a big loophole, if you will. There could be somebody who's quite well off, but they're not working, they're getting all their income passively. So we want to have a system which I think is able to take care of those kinds of exceptions. So I think in Singapore, value of car is not a bad proxy or parallel for your ability to pay.
So in a way, the car really is just a tool to determine where this person's income may be.
The open market value, that's something that the government captures for every single car on the road in Singapore. Okay. So it's a very easily accessible measure. So the idea here is to calibrate the fines not just to the offense, but also to the motorist's ability to pay. And that way, you can make sure that the fines have the same kind of deterrent effect across the population. with the principle of making the guy who earns 10 times more feel the same kind of pain as the guy who earns 10 times less. That's the basic idea.
Here's how traffic fines work in Finland today. Each offence is pegged to a certain number of days that a person will be deprived of their income. For example, if you drive 15 kilometers over the speed limit in Finland, the number of days they think you should lose your income for is 12. You then multiply this number by half the average daily income of the offender. So if you were an average Finn making about 55,000 Singapore dollars a year, your fine would be about 920 Singapore dollars. A Finn making double that would be fined double, so about 1,840 Singapore dollars. I applied the same formula in Singapore for speeding, but I replaced income with the open market value of the car. So if you're driving a humble Mitsubishi Ortega, the fine would be about $230. And if you were in a Porsche 911 Carrera, you'd pay almost $2,000. That's nearly 10 times more than the Mitsubishi driver. It's kind of like our progressive tax system. You make more, so you pay more. But how will this idea sit with these drivers? Last year, Singaporeans were caught speeding more than 156,000 times. That's a whopping 428 speeding violations a day. They also ran red lights nearly 54,000 times, or 148 times each day. To drive these numbers down, the government has raised fines for traffic offences as part of a raft of changes to the Road Traffic Act. One expert suggested pegging fines to the car model you drive. The higher its OMV, the more you pay. I did some calculations on what a speeding ticket would look like in such a system, and I'm about to show the math to some luxury car owners.
So Terry, I'll give you an example. A guy driving a Mitsubishi might pay about $200 to $300.
Okay, for fine.
You would end up paying for the same offense about $1,900. How do you feel about that?
Well, obviously not cool,
Yeah.
right? Clearly, I mean, what differentiates the offense?
It's the
Just
same
because
offense.
It's the same because it's a car, right?
Yes, because it's a bit harder to find out people's income. The idea was that the car is seen as a tool or an indicator of the person's income.
Some people live in HDB, but they can own, better cars, luxury cars. How do you define a luxury car and a non-luxury car? I think driving recklessly doesn't mean you have to own a luxury car or, a salon car. I think it depends on the person that's behind the wheel.
If we want to really make our roads safer, and good driving manners and everything else, then that deterrent should be just across the board for everybody.
It comes as no surprise that these drivers don't like Associate Professor Tessera's proposal. So instead of playing around with how much you pay if you get caught, should we be looking at increasing the likelihood that you will get caught? Dr. Serene Koh is a behavioral scientist. She's been a consultant for the Home Affairs Ministry since 2016. Serene believes she knows how to make drivers less rebellious on our roads.
If I know that I speed and I can get away with it, even if the fines are high, it is unlikely to have a strong deterrent effect.
Or I may think like, since I've only been caught 1 out of every 20 times, it's kind of worthwhile.
Exactly, because the habit and the response to that deterrent is a very strong one. So one thing that we could do is increasing enforcement. You can think of apprehension in terms of more security cameras. You can think of apprehension as more traffic police on the road. But peer apprehension or peer pressure is actually an equally powerful way of apprehending people or providing feedback. So, for instance, in the 1990s in Colombia, in Bogota, where traffic conditions were very, very poor, the mayor at that point had quite a novel idea to reduce traffic fatalities on the road.
Right.
He came up with an idea of what he called a citizen's card.
Okay.
A citizen's card was a very simple card with two sides. On one side was a thumbs up sign, and on the other side was a thumbs down sign. So 350,000 of these citizens' cards were given out to anyone who was interested, and his intent was for people to use that as a way to provide feedback to each other on behaviors that were either ideal or not. So for instance, spitting, not good, you show a thumbs down sign. Helping an old lady cross the road, that's a good thing, you show a thumbs up sign. A decade after it was introduced, right, fatalities halved across the city.
So because people were going, oh yeah, hey, great man, you know, oh no, ooh, you know, and then...
Yes, speaking from a psychological point of view, human beings appreciate social validation, right? We are influenced by social pressure. We take very seriously how other people think of us.
So it seems that people need to really believe that there's a high chance they'll get caught breaking the rules in order to follow them.
But there are thousands and thousands of public roads in Singapore. There's no way the traffic police can cover all of them, even with the help of surveillance cameras.
So should we be looking at prevention instead of punishment?
I think it'll actually be quite good, right, to run a bit of a psychological test.
According to the World Health Organization, road traffic injuries are set to become the third largest cause of death and disability in the world next year. How does Singapore stack up in terms of road safety? If we look at road accident fatalities per 100,000 vehicles, our death rate is 12.9. That's more than twice the rate of our peers in the developed world, such as Japan and the UK.
In July this year, the Singapore government revised the Road Traffic Act to make our roads safer. One of the things done was to increase the fines for less serious traffic offences. But from what I've learned so far, I don't think that's really going to make a difference in changing road user behaviour. So I want to know whether we should be getting to these drivers before they get their licence rather than after.
Last year, there were over 2 million drivers on our roads. And psychologist Dr. Emily Ortega believes that the key to safer roads is getting to these drivers before we allow them behind the wheel.
So even before they've got their licence, you can kind of guess which type of people might be more prone to committing traffic offences.
I think if we look at certain personality traits and how well they can regulate their emotions and how well they can handle stress, that could give us an indication.
To test out Dr. Ortega's theory, I've enlisted the help of these 4 drivers. Dr. Ortega is going to conduct the test in 2 parts. The first part is a 10-minute questionnaire that she has devised. This will evaluate how these young drivers measure up against the general population in 4 categories: thrill-seeking behavior, impulsiveness, anger tendencies, and their ability to regulate emotions. The second part of the test calculates how well they handle stress when driving. We'll spring some unanticipated obstacles on them, such as having the instructor suddenly hitting the dashboard and measuring their heart rate. The higher the stress levels, the higher the heart rate. It's clear that some of these drivers are better at keeping their cool than others.
Do you get angry or upset with other people?
Sometimes. I'll be lying if I say I don't know.
You try to reverse back.
Huh? How?
Was that quite tense? Do you feel that was quite stressful?
A wee bit tense.
Just a wee bit, okay.
And now time for the results.
We'll start off with Vanessa.
Alright.
Your impulsivity score is quite high.
Yeah. It's very stressful.
The numbers show that, yeah, I feel like your heart's beating quite fast now.
So it seems that you're quite an impulsive person, that you tend to react very quickly rather than going through the slow decision-making process. Just now when we were on the circuit as well, we were mounting a lot of curbs.
Yeah.
Your rear wheel will mount the curbs, eh?
Oh, it's okay.
It's okay.
And I mean, that could have been a reason that she's impulsive, she just goes for it.
I agree with the assessment completely. Yeah, I mean, I see myself as a danger on the road.
Kyrie, your turn. Looking at your assessment.
Okay.
The first one we need to look at is your sensation seeking. Your sensation seeking score is also quite high.
Have you ever got any traffic offences?
Yes, I beat a red light once.
Oh, did you get caught?
Yeah, I got caught.
Oh, you got caught.
12 demerit points, $200 gone.
So you seem to be someone who enjoys thrills and adventures and stuff. Is that true?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Being a guy, being a sports person, yes.
Ah,
definitely.
okay.
But he wasn't really a sensation seeker on the road.
Yeah, he wasn't. I mean, because we were all there watching him. When the cameras are off, he might be speeding off to somewhere. And for you, it seems like you tend to get rather angry while you're driving.
Have you ever run a red light?
No.
Have you ever been caught running a red light?
No.
But your emotion regulation scores are actually pretty good. You know, you can see it's nice and low, right? We should explain why, even though you tend to feel a lot of anger while you're driving, you're actually able to manage that pretty well.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Your impulsivity score also very high.
Are you impulsive, do you think?
Usually I'm not. I think when I first got my license, sometimes when you miss an exit or this, you tend to like be impulsive, want to turn. But after over a time, I saw those video of accidents or this thing, like people crash. So I start to like think, okay, if this thing happens, I'm just going to just go straight and exit at the next exit.
So with a test like this, how does it actually help the drivers?
I think the first thing is that it builds the self-awareness. So when you know a little bit more about yourself, you're able to manage your impulses, your different reactions a lot better on the road, and then that will make you a much safer driver.
So you're saying before they get their license, we could possibly put all drivers through a similar sort of test?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Our test subjects have discovered some hard truths today about how their personalities affect the way they drive. And I found that making personality tests part of the licensing process could help identify which drivers need more awareness and training before getting on the road. These tests aren't so far-fetched. Countries like Dubai are already using them on taxi drivers, who must pass psychological tests before obtaining their license. What else is the rest of the world doing to make our roads safer? I'm meeting with Dr. Raymond Ong. He's a walking encyclopedia of transport systems around the globe, and he's got the awards to prove it.
In the US, they have been trying out with roundabouts because they found that they have actually a lot of higher accident rates at the signalized intersections. So they began to remove the signalized intersections to construct roundabouts. It actually reduced accident rates, and for the past few years, they have been doing a lot of roundabout constructions in their cities. They find that the people have to slow down and find a way to get in so that it can actually have what we call this traffic calming effect.
But that's something we can do here too, or not so much?
Unfortunately, we do not have enough land to have so much roundabouts. And because of that, we tend to approach in designing safer intersections. You can actually have a longer distance to brake and stop in time and to prevent accidents. And this can be catered for in the design of the infrastructure itself.
So you would be of the mind that it's better to create the infrastructure rather than fine the people?
For me, I believe in creating more positive reinforcement either through infrastructure design or through traffic signals design to make sure that drivers do not go to the stage whereby they have to go to fine, because that to me is a much more effective measure than fining.
From my investigation, I've assembled many new ideas to help make us better drivers. But I wonder if these solutions would truly work in Singapore. To help me explore these options, I've gathered some car junkies. I give the group the solutions that I've gathered from my chat with the experts and get them to vote on them.
So the first one is an idea of peer pressure. So in other words, you see a guy driving well, you know, he's stopping, he's slowing down for pedestrians, you go by, when you see he catch his eye, you go, thumbs up. What do you guys think?
I think it might work. When you give him a thumbs up, he'll probably do it more often than not.
As long as the thumbs down doesn't result in a road rage incident.
Yeah.
Next one. The more you earn, the more you pay. Any of you?
No.
None of you?
It might work, but it will cause a lot of unhappiness.
I wouldn't advise it because you're going to accentuate the gap between rich and poor even more. You know, what cars people drive, what cars, how much they earn, and where's it going to end?
Okay, so no one likes that one. Next one has to do with road structure. We're talking about the infrastructure. It's all about creating better roads, having more signage, better traffic junctions, making it easier for drivers to drive better. Yeah? Who's in? Who wants a sticker?
We need to do whatever we can, right? I mean, if the infrastructure is going to help and it's going to save a life, then let's do it.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, you too?
Yep.
Okay, demerit points. More demerit points for certain offences.
I would say they're effective, certainly, but they're effective where they are today.
So you don't think we need harsher?
We don't need harsher ones.
Well, or we can increase cameras.
I think that's enough for now, really.
You think it's enough?
Yeah, it's enough. If you increase more cameras, then people will tend to be more aware of themselves, then they will tend to drive slower, and this will cause more traffic build-up.
Okay, last call. Anybody? No. Really? No? Nothing well? Okay.
So, no votes for increasing demerit points or increasing surveillance as well. And now, the final option.
Should everyone have a personality test? What do you think?
So that could be part of the whole education, driver education system, right?
So that's the idea.
Understand yourself better, what tends to trigger you, etc. So yes, I would agree to that.
I believe it will work actually because nothing like a little reminder to just remind you to, keep it safe.
Well, there you have it. The votes are in. The top choices to reduce traffic offences are design our roads better, pressure each other into behaving graciously as drivers, and include a personality test before one is issued a license to drive.
As for me, I tend to agree. My investigations these past few weeks have shown me that hiking fines isn't the key to safer roads. I think small nudges that take into account the human psyche will be more effective in changing our behavior on the roads in a way that will last.